So what's the conclusion for grain fed?
It will be eventually morally unacceptable to eat meat.
Yes. Eventually, it'll be morally unacceptable to eat meat. You guys think this is true?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have some futurists here. Some say yes, some say no. We'll find out in the future. Here's the thing. What is messed up about this conclusion? What comes out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Morally. I was like, thank you for these facts. Now it's going to become morally unacceptable?
But it's an ethicist, so you have to anticipate that there's going to be some kind of a moral
Sure,
judgment.
sure. An ethicist can make moral arguments. I'm cool with that, Ben. Anyone can make moral arguments. Even presidents of the United States
Right.
can make moral arguments, but they need to talk about that in their premises before they start going into it in their conclusion, right?
This is true.
Otherwise, it's not backed up. Okay, so I was going into these answers. We're trying to weaken the argument, right? And I was going into them thinking to myself, okay, what is the fact? Well, how does the fact that basically, if you were to summarize the premises into one idea, what's the basic gist?
People will starve.
People people will starve. Yeah, it's going to become very hard to make meat, right? That's how I was thinking about it. It's going to become very hard to make meat. People are going to starve. Therefore, it's going to become morally unacceptable. Just because it's going to become very expensive or difficult to make meat doesn't necessarily mean that it will be morally unacceptable, right? People might just covet it but not get it. Therefore, it's morally acceptable. It's just hard to get, right? Think about all those things that are hard to get that we covet that are probably bad for the environment. Okay, anyways, let's go through these. What's going to be true about the right answer? Probably
Be strong.
strong. The stronger it is, the more it does to weaken, right? Okay, answer choice A. Even though it has been established that a vegetarian diet can be healthy, okay, many people prefer to eat meat and are willing to pay for it.
It doesn't mean it's morally unacceptable. People are willing to pay for things that are morally unacceptable.
Sure, people are willing to pay for things that are morally unacceptable, even if it just doesn't talk about the moral thing at all, right?
Yeah.
B. Often cattle or sheep can be raised to maturity on grass from pastured land that is unsuitable for any other kind of farming. What is it saying?
You can raise meat without grain.
And without taking land that could be used for grain. So that somebody couldn't criticize you for eating meat and saying that you were taking away resources that were necessary to feed other people because you're like, look, it's just
What's going to happen to that grass?
It's just gonna sit there. Nobody can use it for farming.
Yep. I would keep this one open, right? Like, maybe you can produce meat that is not really taking away from anyone else. C. I got rid of C because I have no idea what this has to do with morality. Answer choice D. Why is this wrong? Although prime farmland near metropolitan areas is being lost rapidly to suburban development, thanks suburbs, we could reverse this trend by choosing to live in areas that are already urban.
The population is going to continue expanding, so eventually you're going to have the same problem that you had before. It's just going to mitigate it.
Hey, it says we could reverse this trend, and it says which one following if true.
But the population is still rapidly expanding, so
We could reverse this trend, Ben,
But will you?
but will you? So you have to accept the answer is true. It says we could reverse this trend. Now, I'm going to take, I think I get what you're saying. It says it's being lost rapidly to suburban development. We could reverse this trend. In other words, it's not being lost rapidly. It could still be lost.
yeah. It's
I think that's what you're getting at, right?
being eventually it will be overwhelmed by
Okay.
the population. Yeah.
But even if we accept this is true, like you could go in the opposite direction and put everybody in the urban areas, the question remains. The fact that we could doesn't tell us that we will, so who cares? Right? We could all start being nice to each other, but will we? Sadly, probably not. Nutritionists agree that a diet composed solely of grain products. Are we talking about diets composed solely of grain products?
No.
Just not meat. So, E is out. What answers were we debating? Wait, which ones?
E and B.
Oh, E and B. Wait, I got rid of E for another reason. It says that a diet composed solely of grain products is not adequate for human health. Oh no, I guess that would say, hey, we need something other than grain, maybe meat. I see what you're saying. Okay, so I shouldn't have gotten rid of it for any other reason, but solely is still a big problem because that's not what we're talking about.
Plus, it doesn't talk about anything about. We're talking about meat, not grain, right?
Well, I think part of the premises deal with grain, so I don't think it's a problem to address this. But in some ways, E is kind of like other answers in the sense that it doesn't talk about morality, but either way, just because it's not solely grain doesn't mean that it has to have meat, right? It could have veggies or whatever.
But
Nick?
is it a diet composed, or a diet devoid of meat?
Devoid of meat.
Would that
You're
be-
becoming a really good LSAT student, scholar, if you will. Nutritionists agree that a diet devoid of meat is not adequate for human health. I still wonder if B would be better, because even if it's not adequate, people might feel compelled to have a less than adequate meal compared to starving.
Or it's moral, so people are willing to sacrifice their health to do the right thing.
Possibly, yeah, Claire.
Well, see, like, what sort of made me reject it was just.
Yeah, go ahead, get
Is it
get assurances from your neighbor.
Yeah, okay. The word often.
Let me confer with my co-counsel. Yes, legal terms here. The word often, Ben, means sometimes.
Yeah, so.
Thus it is weak and should be negated and wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You're okay, cool. So what'd you choose?
I chose E, but. I'm just. But like, I'm just saying with B, I mean, I feel like it more directly, like, addressed his concerns that led up right before the conclusion, but what if it's like 3 farms or 6 farms? I mean,
Sure.
It just doesn't say an amount and it seemed.
Sure. Answer choice B is a really weak answer. And let me make it even weaker for you. Would you like me to do that?
Sure.
Sure. It says often cattle or sheep can be raised to maturity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's super
I'm glad to hear that's a possibility. But will they do that? Here's the thing. It's the answer that does the most to weaken the argument. We're looking for the one that does the most. Even if it does very little, it could still be correct. This is very true in weakening questions and strengthening questions. You can often find an answer that doesn't do much, but as long as it's doing more than the other 4, it's still correct.
How is it wrong?
Well, E is wrong because it says nutritionists agree that a diet composed solely of grain products. Can you imagine that? I mean, eating only cereal all day, and then like, okay, I guess I'll have some bread. Wait, does that have some? That might have nuts in it. Nope, can't have that. Got to go back to grain. That's not, that's a situation like, okay, what about meat though? It really doesn't touch on that. Okay, and answer choice D has that other problem that Ben was talking about, and the could problem. So, are we okay with that? All right.